Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to What's Troubling You with discussions with Chantel and Charlene. I am so honored today. Chantel and I are extremely honored today to be able to have a topic that is really, really important and in the front lines of the news today. We're going to talk to educators about education, the educational system, and COVID. So if you are on live and you have questions, please post your questions because they are here to help you to get some understanding and some clarity. I want to welcome them today, and I want them to introduce themselves and to just give a little background on themselves. So we'll start with Elder Topaz. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
She's on me.
All right, let's
Let's
try
start
it again.
again. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you, Charlene and Chantel, for the invitation. I thank you and appreciate you so much, and for inviting us in this virtual space to talk about something that we are so passionate about. My name is Topaz Thornton. I am a mother of three. I thank God that all of them are adults now. Hallelujah. Yes, all of them are adults now. I am a 25-year educator. This is my 14th year as an administrator. And I think that's pretty much all I can think of. I do have some other things that I do outside of education, and I can definitely talk about those later. But like I said, I'm just glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Okay. Elder Shanny.
Hi, I am Shauna Haynes, or Elder Shauna Haynes of the Potter's House of Fort Worth. Just a little bit about me. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a granddaughter. And I like to say around the way girl. So, and what I have to bring to the table is I think I'm the newbie of the whole crew. I've only been in education for 4 years. That is my gift, though. So I've been educating all my life. My mother likes to tell people that I used to put my stuffed animals all around me, and I would stand in front of them and teach them my ABCs or whatever I had learned at school, and so I would continue to do that. My background is a special ed, and it's support, so that's what I do for the education system.
Okay, good. Awesome, 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 awesome. All right, Martina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Martina Van Norden. I am a mother of actually two of my two boys, biological, and then a mother of 5 blended. So, but they were grown when my husband and I got together. So I feel like I became more grandmother to 2 grandsons that I'm so happy to have, and also a few godsons. So I am a mother of boys. I am a boy mom all the way live. Also am an educator and an activist. I've been an educational consultant. I've been an administrator. I sit on the board of 2 charter schools here in North Texas. And I just am passionate about education, have my own educational consulting company called All Things Egenia. And it's just so good to be here with these discussions with both of you, because I know this is something that's important to you as well. So yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And our other guest, Natalie Brown. You can introduce yourself.
I believe you're speaking of me, and my name is Valerie Brown.
Valerie, okay. I apologize. I apologize. Valerie yes. Brown, yes, welcome. Introduce yourself, please.
I am, like you said, Valerie Brown. I'm a teacher, educator in Miami-Dade County, here in Miami, Florida. I've been teaching 18 years now in special education. I currently teach only students with autism. And I've been doing that now for the last 8 years of those 18 years.
Okay.
And I was invited to sit on this call by Elder Shauna Haynes.
Okay.
So if I can help or add any information that would be beneficial to you ladies, call on me. I'm here.
Thank you
Yes,
for joining us.
I'm excited. Thank you for coming because it adds definitely some diversity to this conversation.
Yes,
Great.
it
So
does.
again, I just want to thank you again for coming to talk. And we just want to jump right in
Mhm.
because I know once we start this conversation, it's going to be really, really exciting. So one of the things that at the top of our conversation is to just give, and anybody can start with it, to just give your own depiction of where do you think we are at this point with the educational system, because the children were at home all last
A
year,
year.
and here we are on the brink of going back now, or some kids have gone back, and we're still struggling with this COVID and other things, not only just the children being in a limited position, but just to kind of give your own take on where we are right now before we delve into, more deeper conversation about the educational system. Anyone can start.
Well, I'll start. I don't, y'all know, I don't have a problem talking about this. We're in a period of transition, a major period of transition within the educational system, because we are looking at unprecedented times. And we're looking at changes and transitions in a system that was already one that marginalized certain groups of students, that had subgroups that were already in points of achievement gaps. And so with that in mind, we're looking at disruptions in learning that are going to require some bold moves of leaders, of government, of community, of educators. And so in this time of transition, it's conversations like this one that we're having that's going to need to be more prevalent among people who are not necessarily who have kids in school. It's like Topaz said, you may have adult children, you might not have any children in school, but you're going to find that the issues in education at this stage are going to have more of an impact on the greater community than ever before. And so, you two ladies are pioneering new ground when it comes to having people who are saying, I don't have kids in the system, but I want to know what's going on.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Mhm. I agree. I think that the pandemic, it highlighted the extreme economic and social inequalities between students. We had so many students who did not have internet, computers. I mean, so the deficit is definitely showing the haves and have-nots, and where we're lacking, and who has abundance. And so I think that it definitely widened the already gap that we were having, depending upon your social economic area.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. I definitely believe it disrupted a lot, especially it exposed a lot of truth that I think we were not willing to really see. And also it exposed a lot of deficiencies. One thing that I noticed, and we always talk about, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We talk about that often. And how we have to make sure that students have the basic needs and to feel safe in order to learn. And we were met in this pandemic with just that. And so, and not only for students, but parents, we had to, as an educational system, I know from the standpoint where I was, we had to provide support for parents, kids, teachers themselves, who were checking out, burning out, leaving the profession left and right. It exposed a lot. It exposed the fact that some teachers may not have had all the tools that they thought they had in their toolkit, and they had to acquire another level of how to deliver instruction that was effective. We looked at, trends in like educational technology.
Right.
in a lot of classrooms, you had teachers who were pretty much a sage on the stage, you know, and they were in a classroom in person, just basically giving information. But now they had to adopt blended models, which blended, you know, in-person education with actually learning virtual platforms that we really didn't have to learn. You know, people were refusing to learn something different. And so it challenged, you know, people in that area. Now I work for a high school, and we had students who had to choose education over survival. So they chose to take on full-time jobs versus checking in for class. You know, we had those types of issues that we were dealing with. So it was really multi-layered, you know, just being boots on the ground with it. It was, even for leadership, as a leader, it was hard because, you know, rallying the troops this time around is different. You know, you're looking at, I'll look at race. When we talk about race and teachers and the inequities and the discrimination that was really prevalent before the pandemic, it was exposed to a whole nother level in the pandemic, with teachers not wanting to extend grace to students. You know, they don't have food. You know, they're struggling with that. They're struggling with Wi-Fi issues. They're struggling with, you know, different things. And yet you still want them to perform and show up the way they would in person when they're virtual. You know, so it was a lot of things going on. But if I could go back and answer the question, where we are in the pandemic, the educational state, I don't think we know where we are, to be honest. I think we're still trying to figure it out.
I would agree with that. It's going to be wait and see as we take it day by day as educators, as administrators in education, as our school board. I'm not sure if you ladies are aware, here in Miami, Florida, where Governor DeSantis has made a public threat that if our school system, Broward, we're on the south side of Florida, so we're so far south, we're the bottom, they call us. Well, Broward County and Dade County has decided that we're going to do a mask mandate. Our governor signed into law of his own, a directive that we cannot mandate, giving it to parents the choice to send their child to school with or without a mask. And our ICUs and our hospitals are filling up. They already have canceled selected surgery. So if you needed to have a pancreas moved, a pancreas or cancer surgery, whatever you needed, if it's not COVID related, we're sending you away. So that tells you how serious it is in South Florida. So what is my point? What DeSantis has decided to do is, if our superintendent, Broward and Dade, or anywhere in Florida, or our school board decide to keep in place that mandate, they will refuse to pay them their check. That's serious. That's tyranny almost. You know, that's being a dictatorship, because that takes away their rights as well as my right, because I voted to put that person in office. So this is so serious for how school will look for us. I wish I could pull it up for you guys, but we did get a letter. I'm part of the United Teachers Day union, so I am a steward in my building at my school. I didn't tell you guys that, but so I had access to this letter from our Secretary of Education with the Biden administration that said that they will fund us through the federal dollars, all superintendents and school board members who decide to defy DeSantis. So I'm happy about that. They was willing, there was already a thing on television, they was gonna, you know, go ahead and not recall that mandate, the mask mandate, and just take a pay cut. But to have the backing from the White House means so much, especially as an educator. I'm vaccinated, but I have coworkers that are not vaccinated. I have coworkers that I know personally. And when kids cannot be vaccinated, even though I'm at a high school level, we have parents, we have kids that haven't been vaccinated. It's going to really changed the dynamic of school because I taught. I'm gonna make it short, but I'm gonna tell you, I taught this past school year. Some of my colleagues taught online. I was one of the teachers that was in the classroom. I had 4 kids. All of the teachers that came back, on the average, we would have 3 to 4 announcements a week, announcing that 7 classes have closed down. All the teachers and all the students who came in contact with this teacher or the student are out of the building. One time we got down to 100 people in that building. This is a building that holds 3,000 people, and I'm not exaggerating, guys. So you can send them back to school, but if they're not wearing their mask, they're not taking proper precaution, they're gonna be in and out, in and out, in and out. So the kids are in school one day, and then they do 14 days, which is 2 weeks online. Then they can come back. I saw kids that was coming back and then going back out after a week later because somebody else in another class got COVID. It's gonna be disruption constantly. Get prepared for the disruption. Have your child be online, offline. And for, I can't speak for elementary, but I know for high school, our numbers drop tremendously. Grades, testing, motivation, and you were right, major burnout on both the kids and the teachers. We have no clue. No clue. It's gonna be a day by day situation of where we stand.
Well, on the positive note, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I mean, can I just add one thing? Because
I mean, because it's so gloom and doom. So I hear people saying, on a positive note, I think it has been given us a newfound appreciation for teachers and educators. I think parents understand the importance.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just pray that we would all come together in partnership. And if we would do a better job of partnering with educators and parents, I think that we really can move the needle in educating our kids and meeting the needs of each child. That's all it is. Sorry, go ahead, Marquita.
And because I know that Charlene and Chantel's broadcast is, because they go to different states, it's important for people as they hear us talking to understand that you're talking to, and educators who are in Texas and in Florida. And so the key issue here is to first know there's a couple of things that have to be done. One is that everyone has to take responsibility for knowing what is going on in their state. Every state is different because you have different state education agencies. Here in Texas, our education agency is TEA, and they are commissioned to set policy and to establish the guidelines and the protocols that each individual state uses. And so it's very important for those who are listening to know you got to look at New York State, you got to look at New Jersey, you got to look at whatever state you're in to find out what's going on. Now, I will say that I think Texas and Florida, I think you have the best, some of the best case studies on out there right now on your broadcast, because we are looking at the most harsh policies, because you're looking at governors who are they're doing their own thing. They are choosing to go against the CDC guidelines. They're choosing to go against the U.S. Secretary, Department of Education's guidelines. So these are the school districts, not the school systems that are going against what is happening. So if you're living in a state that is going along with it and does have mandatory mandates, has set up COVID vaccinations, protocols, are doing mobile COVID vaccinations in their schools, you really have to thank God for that because you're in a better position. And that's why it's so important to know the difference in the states, because what's going on here might be different for what's going on in the state where you are. So I wanted to just make sure that was said, because like I said, I know your broadcast extends beyond Texas and Florida. And but this, we are worst case scenario.
Right.
Absolutely. And one last thing I just wanted to say as well is that I am always pro teacher, but what COVID taught me is the value of policy and how miseducated, underrepresented we are.
She froze.
Yeah.
She
How
froze.
the systems work and how the policies work. Because you're looking at right now, someone would say, well, okay, well, if the federal government has said that there's a mandatory mandate, how is the state allowed to do this? That would be something someone would ask. But you have to know what the policies are in your state. It's so very important. And that's the part where I think many times parents are looking at teachers, and the issue has to be resolved on such a different level than that, that if we're still miseducated and do not know the policy and know how to civically engage, we're going to see our children in really disastrous situations. I know we don't want to be gloom and doom, but the urgency is real. It's
Yeah.
real. You are dealing with teachers in school districts that are totally going maskless without vaccines, and they're inviting your children into those spaces. And if they're under 12, they can't get vaccinated.
Right.
So that means you have younger children, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds going into compromised environments. Parents don't know their rights. Teachers are overwhelmed just trying to get ready to start to teach them. And you have state government officials who are operating against their constituency. That's a lot going on. And we have to address all of those on all different levels. We have to address it.
So I would just ask for parents out there, some parents don't know. So maybe give them some ways that they can help their student and the teacher coming back after COVID. What can they do?
Well, the first thing I would say is wear a mask. And talk to their kids about the importance of the mask and cleaning their hands and abiding by what their teacher asks them. A lot of teachers can't say certain things about pulling up your mask, and there's been some language that they've been deterring teachers from saying. So if you, as parents, because I believe that parents are the first teacher, and if we remember that the parents are the first teacher, you teach your children what that's going to look like coming into that room. I don't have any little ones. I can't imagine sending my kids back to a school. I don't think I could do it, but I know that everybody has a different, some people have to go back to work so that they can feed little Johnny, right? So that mother who has to send that child back, and of course there's no vaccinations at the time for under 12, the importance of their masks, the importance of them cleaning their hands, their importance of staying in their desk. It's which is all tough. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the things that parents can do right now is, number one, is to write a letter. Find out who your school board officials are in your school district. That's the first thing. When you first know who your school board, and find out who the person is representing your area. And if you go online and just put in, your school district, and then look up on your school district's website who that person is, and their email should be up there. There should be an email address, and say, I want to have masks, like, Chana said, I want mask mandates in our schools. The second thing is to reach out to your child's administrator, contacting them, because those administrators are in a catch-22. Topaz is one of my favorite educators in Fort Worth ISD. I don't have a child in Fort Worth ISD at all. But all morning, all night, the last 2 or 3 months, I've been showing up at school board meetings because she's an employee. So she can't necessarily speak for herself.
Right.
She can't speak against her employer. And there's education policy that says she cannot do that because she is a public employee. So she can be petrified, scared out of her mind to go to school, but can't say anything. So it goes back to that whole idea about having it be a tyranny in a sense,
Right.
because you do somewhat lose your rights at the schoolhouse gate to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So Topaz, Chana, they're going to depend on parents and community members. That's why I think what y'all are doing, Shirley and Chantel, is so important. They're going to depend on us to be their voice, to be the ones that speak and say, no, we want masks. You also, so contact your child's administrator, reach out. And even if you don't have children in school, contact that local school, contact that local PTA or that parent body, and get involved, because those are the people who are going to know what activism is happening in your community. They're going to have their fingers on the pulse of what's going on and what's being done outside of the schoolhouse that is really in your interest. The other thing that you can do, and I'm going to say, because all of us, is pray. There has to be serious intercessory prayer over the forces that are coming against this next generation. We do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in very high places. And so there has to be prayer that takes down these people who are looking for advancements in their own individual power and wealth. So if you're talking about what you can do, those are just 3 things: school district, school administrator, and pray. Those are 3 that you can start today. That doesn't require you to take off work, doesn't require you to lose anything. It just says, open your mouth and speak for the interest of your children and your community.
I just want to piggyback on that for a little bit from both standpoints of what Shauna and Martina was saying. I was sharing before we started the broadcast that as of August 10th, Fort Worth ISD had a mandatory mask mandate in place. As of yesterday, very late in the evening, we got information that there were 4 people who filed a restraining order against the district regarding the mask mandate. And now that it's just, recommended. I have not heard a message come through from Fort Worth ISD because they're normally good about communicating to the community. I have not seen any type of communication regarding that. So with that, while you have Martina and other advocates there, advocating for those who cannot speak outrightly, just like Shauna said, I'm going to encourage that you talk to your children, because there is, honestly, if we're going to be real and 100 and transparent, for the safety and welfare of kids and parents, there is a level of control that we don't have. So we can't follow the student everywhere in the building,
Right.
that we can't say, hey, Bobby, stay with me. Your mama's concerned. Every parent is concerned. So just like that, wearing a mask, having hand sanitizer with you, having your own soap, because some schools have that little pink clear soap that doesn't disinfect anything. So having your own type of PPD supplies there. so that you can sanitize and teach your child what they need to do. If a kid comes too close, you know, like Martina said, make sure that they communicate that to an administrator or a teacher that I don't feel comfortable. Someone's in my
Yeah.
personal space, because they also lifted the mandate
6.
for social distancing.
Yeah.
That's gone. It went from 6
Mhm.
feet to 3 feet to 0 feet.
Right.
So that's gone. So anytime a child feels like a kid is in a personal space, and this is conversations that a parent would have to have with a student, because once kids start socializing, sometimes their guard is down. They forget
Mhm.
that. So these are just really hard, intentional conversations to have with kids. So I also wanted to allude to, there's some districts who have virtual schools now. And of
Mhm.
course, I wish the one that I was serving had one, but there are some who have virtual schools. So as a parent, I would do some research. If you're wanting your child to be in a virtual platform, what's the nearest, it could be a charter school, what's the nearest educational institution that may have a virtual school? I
Right.
want to allude to something that Ms. Brown said earlier. Is it Ms. Brown?
Yes, yes.
Like, in my case, I had kids who actually excel in a virtual space and don't want to come back. And they've
Hmm.
expressed that I do not want to come back into an in-person environment, because I flourished where I was. It was safe. I didn't have to
Mhm.
worry about all of the particulars of distancing and wearing masks and having to, for high school kids to dress up and having to put on clothes and look cute and socialize and have
Right.
to avoid bullying and all these other things that happen. They actually excel. Most of
Mhm.
my school, I'm gonna say about 75% to 80% of my school was virtual,
Mhm.
and they excel. And we did have some that struggled, but these are just things to research regarding what can I do to make sure that my child is safe. And even if
Mhm.
they have siblings all the way from 12 and under to high school age, even though my high school age kids can get vaccinations and have vaccinations,
Mhm.
but they go home to kids who are 12 and under.
Right.
Feel in jeopardy, you know, of spreading potentially, you know, this virus. But yeah, as a parent, I would do lots of research, making some hard decisions. I'm not promoting homeschool, but I will say, if you find a homeschool that you feel comfortable enrolling your student in, to know that
Right.
they're going to be safe, I would also research that option as well.
Mhm.
I wanted to say, I wanted to address, again, thank y'all. Y'all have, wow, given us this first 30 minutes have been impactful. But I
Yes.
want to say something that Martina said that I think is, yeah, I never thought about until she said it, was the fact that if you don't have children that are in school, because I don't have any kids in school either, and I live in a district, again, I pay school taxes, but I don't have any kids in school. But I didn't know that I could still be a part of the PTA and not have any kids. I've never heard of that before. So I'm saying this because I think a lot of parents or a lot of people who live in areas don't even know they have a voice
Yeah.
because they don't have any kids in school. If you're retired, then that means you have a voice. I just
Mhm.
never thought about that. And as she was talking, I was thinking, well, shoot, I pay a lot of taxes for them. I should have a voice, right? And
Mhm.
this should go for a lot of people. And again, people don't know that because nobody has ever said that. You
Right.
assume when I had a child in school, yes, I was involved because I had a kid in school. But once she transitioned out, I just thought that ended. But obviously, that's not so. And so I want to add to the list that you gave and encourage people that if you don't have any children in school and your kids have graduated or moved on and you're still paying school taxes, you need
Right.
to join this, you need to get involved and have a
Yes.
voice in what's being said. you know, about what's going on with these children. Because not only do they impact other children, but they impact the community.
Right.
You know, they impact the community. And I work for the criminal justice system. And one of the things that I know that we struggled with also was not being face to face.
Right.
And having to go to a virtual platform. It's a little different because I do counseling. And so counseling was a lot easier, but I hear the voices of the parents who not only are having to deal with their own issues, and usually, and it's just the truth, school was an outlet for them.
Yeah, right.
Right,
You know,
right, right.
it was a respite. Let's use that word. It was a respite for them to do what they had to do when they let the educators babysit their
Right,
children.
right.
Yeah.
And the feedback that I got from a lot of them was even just more stress, more depression, more issues that went along with the fact that I got all these kids. I mean, I can think of one person in particular. She had 6 kids.
Oh,
Right.
She's a young person with 6 kids, and she has some issues going on right now. Okay. And because I was in her life, we were in her life, she was now struggling at home with children who had difficulty in learning. So she had to go out and get, well, this particular school district she was in, which I think is really admirable to the school district, they gave laptops to all the kids, which I thought was very admirable. I thought that was great. The other thing was, but she was struggling back and forth. So I had a session, I remember having a session with her, and she was like, wait a minute, hold on, I gotta go attend to this person, that person, or she had them try to get them on the schedule. And we talked about creating schedules and creating different. So here we are, we have parents who are also struggling, not only the kids, but they're at home or even have to go to work. Some people don't have the option of working from home.
Right.
You know? So that's another issue that's about to come out. And so one of the things that Chantel was talking about, how do we help these parents? And I appreciate y'all because y'all have given us information for our listeners, because we are, let me throw a plug in here real quick.
Yes.
After this is over, this goes on YouTube live.
Yes.
So it doesn't, like Martina said, it doesn't just stop here in Texas. It goes everywhere, okay? And people watch. And we found out they've been watching. And so one of the things that we wanted to do this time was to bring this platform on. And I'm so glad I have all of y'all. Y'all are so good. That to be able to voice how we can help families, okay? How we can help the children, how we
And the
can
teachers.
system. That's what I was gonna say. How can we help the system? You know, in getting to a point that they are all workable, okay? Because of the time we're living in, okay? Because of the time we're living in. And I have to limit my conversation too, because I do work for government. So I'm careful about what I say. I work for government. So I just want to say that, you know, we want to impact everyone because it trickles down. Everything just trickles down, you know, and it's unfortunate because it does impact our community. It does impact our financial community, okay, as well. So everybody is in this boat and not realizing, and I'm gonna be honest, Martina, I did not realize how much we all are connected to this microcosm that's going on right now in the school system. So I want to address special ed for a minute, okay? Because again, the population I work with, population that Chantel works with, a lot of times we are the people who end up with the people who are in special ed. Okay, so share with us, what are your thoughts about how to help them? Because again, if they don't have systems, they don't have the proper things to do a virtual platform, or even in school, sometimes they don't even have that. You know, and Valerie talked about being in South Florida And so I'm quite sure economically
Mhm.
that's impactful as well. So how do we help, or how do we get involved even with those who have special needs?
So let me just frame that too, because once again, everything is about policy. So oftentimes we talk about special ed and we talk about our service models to students with special needs, but we have to be clear, there is federal legislation, IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, that is what governs every school system around how to serve and how to deliver instruction and supports to students with special needs. So once again, we go back to, how does the state interpret IDEA, and how do they choose to allocate resources to make sure it's delivered? So again, there's the issue of making sure that we have the awareness of what does the law say and what are my legal rights. And I'm going to say I was a special educator, but I'm also going to say that when I found my son, when I found that he needed extra supports, testing was here, but there was something else going on that was not making him connect to that academic environment for some reason. And I went through the process of asking, and I want, like I said, just hear me. I asked the school to test him, but because he was not a behavior problem, because he was well-mannered, and because he was extremely smart and intelligent and performing to the level that they thought a Black male could perform, which is in that C area, he's passing, they didn't think anything was wrong. But as an educator, I'm saying, no, I know he's supposed to be A level. There's something that he's not, there's a disconnect there. I had him tested on my own because the school system does not want to pay the additional money to be able to provide services to that degree for those students. So they're going to try everything they can to factor them out of that special needs area. I had him tested, he was tested, and then I had leverage to be able to insist that the school system did certain things. And those things were very simple, as giving accommodations for him, having certain, having certain things and modifications that would meet his needs. Now, one would think that that is being done ordinarily, but it wasn't. I had to have him fall in that special needs category so that I could appropriately advocate for him. So there's the issue of, do parents understand or know what their rights are, right? And then if they have those students in special needs, making sure that there's someone there communicating to the school and being actively engaged in the school to know that they're getting the services they need. So I'm going to speak from that point because I know Chana and Topaz can speak from the actual delivery part. But I say that first because I think it's important that parents who have students who are in a special education program, I think they need to be more engaged, especially now, asking questions. What other things can I get to help? What other things can I do? Making sure that I actually know schools where the psychological is in the file and it has a list of interventions and things that are supposed to be done for children, and the teachers never see it. So it has to be that parents know their rights to be able to advocate for their children. And I speak specifically for Black and Brown children because oftentimes, as Topaz said, it's the expectation of what they think our children can achieve, right? So if you have a system that's 70 to 80% taught by white women, and you have many of these other young people who are in this school system and they are having challenges in the area of special needs, you have to have someone bridging the gap of communication for them so that they get what they need. So I want to just make sure that's the point I bring up is know your rights, because those children have rights to receive services that are often not fiscally at the advantage of the school system.
All right, let me jump in before the educators actually start to respond to this, because I know Valerie and Shauna both have backgrounds in special ed, but before they jump in, let me just address this. Who do they talk to? Who do the parents go to? Because
Find out their rights.
I hear you, okay? And it's good to say that, but who do they talk to? Who is that? What does that
They're
look?
special, they're the best people to talk to is their person the special educator that is responsible for their IEP. That's the person, because that person functions as a case manager in a sense.
Okay.
Okay, they are the persons who are writing up their IEP. They're the ones that are looking at whether that psychological exam, everything is in order, because it's supposed to be updated. I think it's every 3 years. Those type of things have to be in place so they know what's in their IEP. So they have to know who their special educators are. Like I was that case manager for many kids, but the parents didn't necessarily know I was there because they had a teacher for their individual course classes. But I was the special educator assigned to managing their special education services.
So they need to ask for who the special educator, the IEP educator is. Who is that special educator for that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so when a person is watching and they're at their wit's end, and whether the child needs special ed or already in special ed, there's somebody there who with an IEP with the special educator through IEP or with an IEP.
If they have an IEP, they have a special educator assigned to them.
Right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. But that's the difference. The distinction is if they're already receiving special education services, there is a general educator and then there is a special educator. And that special educator is the person who has gone through the training and has the knowledge of how to deliver special education services, and they know the law.
Okay.
I was gonna ask, how do they find out their rights? Because I heard you say they have to know their rights, but for a parent that doesn't know the rights, how would they find that out?
Yeah.
But you can definitely go online and look up IDEA, what Ms. Martina was speaking about. Also, when you send out the IEP, the individual education plan, we send out a almost like a little small booklet of the parental rights of that parent to agree or disagree with what's on the IEP, who to contact, whether they're from their school administration, the district, the school board, anyone that they need to speak to about the IEP and what changes they want to have made, or what they would like to see happen in the school for their child. So they get a booklet of the right of the IDEA themselves.
Right.
And that's every year, because you do the IEP every year. So that's sent out to them every year that they can read through to find out their rights.
So if they're on special ed, they get that. But what if they're not on special ed and they want to place their children on special ed and they don't know the ins and outs, or maybe they have some deficits themselves? What do they do?
So can I just say, you asked the $1 million question, because that is the very nature of why we need people like you all in the PTA and in places where the community is engaged. I'm not doing a plug, but that's the reason why I started Edgenia, because as an educator, as an administrator, as a parent, as a PTA president, I saw the disconnect that no matter, all of these things are like a puzzle, if I can call it that. It's a puzzle, all of these different pieces. So, Topaz has the high school background and she knows that, might know that landscape. Shauna might know the elementary, she might know that landscape. All of us, Ms. Brown might know, the landscape of of a certain state, all of these different pieces. And there are parents who are sitting there saying, I don't know what to do, because I don't know where to go. I don't know what, and that's the very nature of the problem. That is why I believe that it is the lack of knowledge, and that's Bible, y'all. People perish for a lack of knowledge. That has become the crisis, is that this educational system has become so complex and is in such transition, but there's no one out there explaining how this is done. So if the student is not in special ed services by now, and everything about what your work is telling you is that this student should be, it's for people like yourself, when you're seeing those issues come up and saying, you know what, go and talk to your child's teacher, ask the questions, and giving them what questions to ask. I know that you all as practitioners, you'll know, well, if you're seeing this, it may be something else. They're gonna need you all to coach or to inform them on what specifically they need to say to the school, so that the school can then say, oh, well, the parent is saying that the child is not sitting down, he's fidgety all the time, he's not sleeping, he's still urinating in the bed. Like, all of those type of things, once that information is going to the school and they're knowing they're having a difficulty too, that's going to initiate a process.
I think
Okay.
just piggyback on Valerie said, she had mentioned about the thick packet that goes home, and I guess that's across the board. Again, I'm not an educator, so I don't know, but it goes home. What if a parent is illiterate?
Too bad, so sad.
How's that what happens?
Well, what I've come to find out, and we've always been very transparent in the two schools I've worked for, a charter and now a public school. One of them an elementary and the other a high school. I've never seen, if anything, the issue I see is the stigma that the Black community has on special education. We need to have more students that are I have parents who refuse our service. So why, Martina has, a wonderful story. I see so many children in general ed who need our services. And there's nothing wrong with special ed. We all learn differently.
Right.
And once our community understands that and takes away the stigma, then because if you see your child at a young age having a delay in speech or having problems recognizing colors or numbers, that's dyslexia. Those are symptoms. Allow us to come aside. Don't keep pushing that baby ahead. Don't keep arguing with the educators. We're not picking at your baby. We want your baby to succeed, because really, be honest, our numbers, there's certain numbers that go into the politics of schools, and they want these kids to be able to pass these tests. And if your child is holding up progress, that teacher wants them to be covered and have the services they need, so that child can be successful and those numbers can come up. So
Yeah.
that's my little 2 cents.
So let me just ask Shauna this question. Shauna, can you explain, just so that there's a context, what is the demographics of the schools where, like the racial demographic of the schools where you have taught before?
Okay, Title I was the charter school. And now the demographics are Black, Brown, and Vietnamese. So that's where I'm at in Arlington. So
what's a Title
nothing
I?
but minorities. I service minority children.
What's a Title I? What's that?
Title I is a low income area.
And that means, when they say Title I, it means that once again, policy dictates that those particular schools receive additional funding. See, that's the key. They're Title I and they receive additional funding to be able to service those students. So where the reason why I asked Chana that question is because what happens in our community is we'll hear something and we'll hear about the special education situation, and there was a time, and there is a truth, that there was a disproportionate number of students that were being recommended for special education services because they were in schools with predominantly white teachers and a white context. So when you had Black students coming into those environments, they were looking at the cultural differences of those children and were making it that there was something wrong with them, that they must have been special ed because they did not have the professional knowledge of how to deliver a culturally responsive program to those students. So the reason why I asked Chana that is because I want to make sure it's clear that for schools that are Title I, low income, minority, oftentimes those kids have dealt with issues of trauma, issues of poverty, issues of poor diet, bad nutrition, things that are characteristic of those communities. And what happens is those families are not educated to know that sometimes those things will manifest in what Chana said. There are things where they need more help because they have experienced environments that have not set them up for success. And what Chana is saying is, and I 100% agree with her, is that don't fight a system that has something in place to service those students. But if you're thinking that they're in the same context as what happened when the NAACP filed suit against schools that were designating special ed kids just because of the color of their skin, is two different scenarios there. And we can't mistake what Chana is saying as good instruction, committed teachers, dedicated to filling those students' needs with the other context of environments that were not appropriately addressing our students.
Okay, so I just want to first of all answer the question about how a parent can actually request services. I am an assistant principal that oversees special education, and my son was served by special education 1 through 12. He's autistic. So a parent, it has to be put in.
Thank
Yes.
you. I didn't know that. Thank you.
So I've
Me
seen it from
either.
I've seen it from both sides. So a parent has to put in writing. You can't just say it, because what is said, it could, anybody can say they don't remember. Anything that is written can be documented. So a parent has to put in writing a request for a student to be tested in the concerns that they have. That letter needs to be submitted. It can be submitted to an administrator. It can be submitted to a counselor. It can be submitted to that case manager, but it must be put in writing. I've seen so many that had to be delayed with testing because a parent did not put it in writing. If the parent doesn't put it in writing, you cannot override a parent and just test the kid without permission.
Right.
You're in violation. So my first thing that I strongly advise, if you see any deficiencies in your child, put that in writing, make copy of that as well, and submit that to the school before that process can even begin. And that's what a lot of parents don't realize. They're saying, well, y'all know my kid is, they have deficiencies here, they have dyslexia, they have the reading fluency, they have behavior challenges. Yes, we notice that and we're helping, but if you as the parent is one of the biggest advocates in the process. You have to be involved. You have to put it in writing. Now, as a parent of a special education student, what I have seen is that you have some people in a corrupt system who look at the stigma of special education and they want to make decisions for the parent. So if you are in a situation where you have a child in special education, or that you're seeking those services, you have to be the advocate. You have to advocate. Do not allow, even as an educator, as an administrator, as a teacher, do not allow them to make any decisions that you do not agree with. You have a voice. And I remember at an early age when my son began that process in special education, they were basically trying to make decisions for me. And I had to let them know that, no, I'm a part of this process as well. So you see that as well. I often, from the educational standpoint, from instruction, and I'm going to be real and 100, even for our Black and brown kids, I've seen Black and brown teachers not deliver instruction the way they should. They put low expectations on their own Black and brown kids. And so I believe people like ourselves and other advocates need to make sure that we don't have these low expectations about our kids who are in special education, because there are different levels to special education. There's different deficiencies, different learning disabilities. You know, everyone, like Shauna said, with that stigma, we try to box special education in, like every kid is at a very low level, and that's not true. So even educating about special education, you know, the support that it offers, it levels the playing field for some kids. But there are some inequities, and I believe some of the inequities have actually been probably promoted higher than some of the good things that are happening in special education. But just to circle back, if a parent has an issue, you must put it in writing and submit it to the school.
Right. And I just wanted to add what Ms. Thornton said, Ms. Topaz. Let me make a clarification. Miami, because we're being recorded, Miami-Dade public school system did mandate masks for the 2021 school year. Now we're going to 21-22 school year. We're going to have an upcoming vote next week, Wednesday, on whether or not we're going to mandate that as well, ignoring Governor DeSantis' mandate that parents should be the one to make that choice, that not allowing masks. Broward County has already passed that mandate within their school board system, in their system, already letting Governor DeSantis say we're not going to obey that. But we do have backing from the Biden administration through our Secretary of Education that they will pay those salaries if they choose to stand with the community, allowing the local community to make the decision of what they want to do in their school system and not the governor. Okay, you got that? Now back to the ESC thing. What was asked, the other question was asked if a parent was illiterate. Yes, you have to put it in writing. Of course, usually they can't read, they may not be able to write that well. It's very important to have a good relationship with your school administrator and the teachers. And you come and you speak, usually parents come to the teacher first. Usually I get parents come to me first and ask questions and what can I do? I have a lot of colleagues who see in their class and they have a student that's struggling more than normal, like something not right with this kid, Brown. Here's what's going on. And then I can assist that teacher and lead them to whether it's my chairperson in Dade County, we call them the ESC specialist. That's the person that would oversee all the cases. Teachers here in Dade County, we traditionally write our own IEPs with the team. So I would definitely, because I'm the one implementing the IEP as well as the one that wrote it, along with the ESC specialist, okay? Along with the parent, along with the general ed teacher, if the general ed teacher is involved in it, okay? If I'm self-contained, there's not that many general ed, maybe the PE teacher. We all sit together, we come up with the IEP. So relationship is very important, okay? Communicating and relationship. The teacher, the administrator, and the parent working together, the team talking to each other. So if the parent doesn't see it, me reaching out to my administrator and to the parent and following the proper protocol. If the parent see that parent feeling comfortable to come talk to me or to administrator, see the principal, see the school counselor. So with that, so if you have, and that's just true, especially when you don't have much education, you're very reliant on other people and the kindness of other people to help you. So we got to continue, and all that we are expected of us to be kind and compassionate, be patient with one another, bear each other burdens, the scriptures say, and that's key also to being a great educator and providing great educational services. Hope that's helpful.
It was.
That was very
I
helpful.
also want to say this, you can also allow someone else to be your advocate. I've
Right.
had other friends and family who say, hey, this is what's going on with my kid. Can you come to the meeting with me? And so you can always grab a hold of someone, church member or someone that can assist you if you are struggling in areas, and they can advocate for you.
Okay, that's excellent, because
Yes.
again, in this climate, when there's a lot of other things going on, we don't want to be able to leave out those who are already struggling with that, regardless of the pandemic. There are already things going on. One of the things that came to mind as Valerie was talking was about those who, and again, I'm adding something to the pot here that I didn't plan on talking about, but what if, because, and I know some people are afraid of that, if I bring something to you, is this going to bring some light to something else in my home?
Yes, that happens all
Right. 'Cause
from a
Chantel-
CPS perspective.
Right. She works at CPS, and that's just another, caveat in this situation when I'm already afraid, but I don't know what to do. And then I'm bringing people in to help me, and then I'm brought to other people because I'm not doing things right. And all I was trying to do is trying to help my child. What do we do in that situation?
I mean, I'm just going to share a story real quick that will answer your question. We had at our school a good touch, bad touch conversation. And in that conversation, one of the children shared of a bad touch situation with his older sibling. And it required CPS to be involved. And they came in, I mean, it was a whole big thing. And when you said that, my heart went to, I immediately remembered that situation and the mother. And she said to us, y'all have put me in a situation where I had to choose between my kids. And it was the hardest situation because they removed one and kept one and removed one. And it was very hard for her. I'm gonna say once again, you have to you have to trust the process to an extent that the relationships that Valerie was talking about are solid enough that they're going to handle that situation gingerly and with love, but at the same time do what's in the best interest of the kids. It pained me every day to see that mother walk in and know that I signed the paperwork for the nurse to go ahead and move that process forward. I had to look at that parent every day with a heartbreak when she would bring her child to school. But what I understood at the end of the day was I made the right decision because everyone that could be there for her was there for her. The nurse, the dean, the teacher, myself, every administrator was there to walk her through it. But the truth of the matter was, at the end of the day, when I looked at it and I thought about the fact that what would happen if that child would have said, I told, and 10 or 12 or 15 years later, he said, but nobody listened to me.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And I don't know where they are today. I don't know anything about that, but I can at least sit here on this broadcast and be able to say, I know I did the right thing but I maintained that relationship. So what Valerie said was like, that was huge, because you have to know that you have the relationship and that you are doing what you're doing because you have the right intentions. You can't promise a parent that if they tell you there's been some kind of abuse or something like that, that you're not going to report it, because you have to. But you can do it in such a way that maintains the integrity of the relationship, and where you can still serve them in the right way.
I just want to add to that. I definitely agree. The relationship has to be there. Normally, there has been interventions in place. Every school has services that they offer, because there is a difference between neglect and abuse. And I'm struggling financially, or I'm struggling with my basic needs and things that I need to keep my household stable. And so, because of the relationships that we have with students and teachers, administrators, counselors, we're able to put interventions in place to where it doesn't get to that point. So normally, like I said, we have sent them to some type of free counseling service, some type of service where it helps pay their bills, things like that, before it gets to that situation. But like Martina said, in cases where there is abuse, as an educator, according to our board policy, we have no choice but to report it. And so, at that point, it's our responsibility to keep kids safe when we have knowledge of it. And so, it takes that discernment, it takes judgment. What I have done in situations like that, I have called the parent, I have informed the child, I have to call your parent and talk, through this. And so that they know that we know, that this child has disclosed this information, or they came to school with whelps and cuts and, however they came to school. Parent would not allow them to take their medicine before they came to school. Just things like that, it's a difference between neglect and I'm struggling. And so most parents know that we know. And when it gets to that point to where we have no choice, our parents have understood that. They didn't call and say, cuss us out. They didn't call and say, you're not right. They knew, because we offered everything we possibly could. We went above and beyond before we had to make the call. Right. So I just want to encourage parents, when you find yourself in that situation, that you accept the help, that you accept the interventions that we offer that are in place, that you accept some of the outside agencies that we connect you to, accept the help. Let us partner with you. A lot of times people think it's parent versus, school, and it's not like that. We're here to partner with parents. So like Valerie said, it's so important to build that relationship early, so they know we're concerned not just about your kids' education, but about the whole child, about the family. Just we care about everything that concerns them.
That is so good to hear.
Yes, it is.
You'd be surprised at the people not only are fearful of what's going on now, but with all the other, ambivalences that go on with what you just talked about. We're all mandated reporters, and we have to do what we have to do to safeguard the children. But I'm glad that you put a voice and some words to it, so that when somebody else watches this, they can encourage somebody else, later on. And maybe they don't know what to do, but they can hear it by watching this platform. So I appreciate you saying that. Chantel has a question from a viewer.
All right, Felicia Williams wants to know, is it true that on Monday, parents will be able to have a choice to whether their child attends in person or virtual in Mansfield ISD? I don't know if any one of y'all can answer that.
It is true. Mansfield is just put in place as long as by the 16th, on the 16th, you're going to have to immediately notify the school to let them know, but they are allowing a virtual option for K through 6 grade.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
It came out just yesterday.
Okay. Thank you. And I want to ask about this critical race theory and the controversy surrounding that. I know this is gonna be good.
Well, let me just jump in really quick, and then I'm gonna let all the experts go. Critical race theory it started off in the 1970s. I don't know where people are misinformation. They're talking about 80s and 90s. I'm like, no. It started in the civil rights movement, and it's just a framework to explain how racial inequity still exists in today's society. So it's to give they want to give a more holistic view. When we grew up, most of us are in our 40s, 50s, and wrote the history books that we were currently studying were Anglo men. And so history was written by their perspective. And so with the critical race theory, it's from my understanding, it just gives a more holistic approach of how did it affect African Americans? Well, if you don't have a dialogue with African Americans, well, you don't hear how it affected our community. What did that look like? But with the critical race theory, we're bringing everybody to the table and saying this is how this law affected not just us, but then how it became Jim Crow and how it affected, and then what that did to them and still doing. I think what it does is it builds, more empathetic students. And if we know our history, we won't repeat our history.
I'll just jump in and just add some of the things that I think are close to my heart with, critical race theory. It's basically institutionalized racism. I'm just going to speak from it from this, educational standpoint. I'm just trying to tread lightly. So one of the things that, it shapes is policy. It shapes curriculum. And one of the things I'm very disappointed about is, like Shauna said, even with something like history, our textbooks still reflect a white, Caucasian, European, westernized history. They have, and I'm just going to speak on a high school level, they have incorporated like African American history, Asian American history, Latin history, but it's not a core requirement for graduation. It's an elective, so things like that where our kids are still held to that white, culturally biased standard for graduation. Every college entrance exam, SAT, ACT, TSI, all these things are still culturally biased. It has no features of anything African American, anything that goes back to a rich history. I look at things like now we have culturally responsive teaching that they're asking educators to make sure they're in the classrooms. But what does that look like when you can just make sure that the curriculum actually has those pieces of history that even as of last year before, we have these hallmarks in history that we have to either supplement in the curriculum or someone has to get it from the outside. I think about just issues like that I see in the school where everything, our kids are ostracized if they don't want to learn this, I keep having to say white, but this Caucasian based history. But then when they want to learn their own history, then that's not appropriate, and so people like Martina, I love what she's doing with this. We need that type of advocacy because everything that our children do is based upon the westernized way, and it's shunning some of the heroes and things. MLK, we know about MLK. We know that for years, but what else? It's so many other things. Even in literature, I taught English. Even in literature, I had to bring in my own literature to let them know there are prominent African-American people who write beautiful prose and poetry and just all these different things. But in education, I'm very disappointed. I am with this, and I'm looking forward to some change, but it's definitely systematic.
Yes, it is. And they're more concerned with how white children would view themselves. And they have not yet asked themselves how African American children have viewed themselves for decades. Okay. So yeah, I'm disappointed. I would agree definitely of what Topaz just said.
So once again, I'm going to give the policy side of it, which is the activism. Critical race theory is, as Shauna said, is a framework that is used by scholars actually on the master's or doctoral level to understand and to frame history and to frame systems, American systems. And what it says is that because of the way this system was founded, it has institutionalized racism. And that in order to understand the systems of government, law, and education, you have to look at it and acknowledge that racism exists in order to be able to problem solve or to make it an anti-racist system. So CRT is the framework in which that is studied. Where CRT came to play recently was in President Trump, basically, when everything was going on and it was the political unrest around George Floyd. What we had was students coming and children and people all over the world coming and saying, wait a minute, what is up with the police brutality? What is going on? And race became a very prevalent conversation because we had a president at that time who was racist. So it was generating conversation. And what President Trump did at that time was he put an executive order in that said, you cannot use federal funds to teach cultural diversity or offer diversity or inclusion training. That was the executive order he put in place. What happened was when Joe Biden came into office, he then said, okay, that order is done with, I'm rescinding it, it's no longer in effect. What happened then on the state level is governors started to formulate legislation, policymakers started to formulate legislation that has the same intent, which is to make it where you are silencing conversation on race. So what they did was they said, okay, let's pass policy. And what you have now is New Hampshire, South Carolina, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona, Iowa, and Idaho all have passed legislation that goes in and says you cannot have critical race theory in schools. Now, Texas legislation does not mention critical race theory at all. And they're not using the term, but what they are saying is they're creating clauses in the legislation where education policy says you cannot teach Black history, you cannot teach history that is going to teach that one race is superior over the next. Well, what does that mean? We know that slavery was about white supremacy and it was about race. So what they have done is they have eliminated certain key aspects of history. So you now have legislation that says you cannot, it has eliminated, and it's very clear. In Texas, it's House Bill 3979 and Senate Bill 3. Those are the two pieces of legislation that are right now anti-critical race theory happening in Texas. The only reason why that legislation has not already started to move its way through the whitewashing of curriculum that teachers are able to see in their directives of their curriculum yet is because in Texas, we have the Democrats who have left the state of Texas and who have said, we will not return to Texas, and pass this legislation, as well as the voting legislation, Anti-Voting Rights Act. We're not coming back because it does not represent Black people. Why does this have anything to do with education? Because part of that legislation also says you cannot teach civic education. So if you cannot teach this kind of race-focused type of curriculum, you can't teach. They have eliminated a letter from a Birmingham jail from, you cannot teach that in Texas. You cannot teach Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech in Texas, okay? You cannot teach the Underground Railroad. You cannot teach Native American history in Texas. These are all where they have literally taken it out of the curriculum. And this is supposed to be in effect September 1, that this will be in the case. Well, why is it? It is because if you don't teach our history, we're likely to repeat it. If you don't have young people, and we know that the civil rights movement came out of activism of what? Students. We know that the protests around George Floyd came from where? Young people. If they don't know where this system is coming from, that it is rooted in racism, they will not then resist it. They will not then vote against it. So what you're having is, this is a legislative move of Republican policymakers with anti-race theory, anti-critical race theory, to make sure that the next election, you have a miseducated, underrepresented group of Black and brown people who will not be able to vote intelligently. So anti-CRT and voting rights policy are working in tandem with one another. And they're using the educational system to move its agenda. That is what this is.
I got a question, because like I said, I've been seeing this white history since forever. But I'm just gonna throw a hypothetical out there. Now, you say you can't teach letters from Birmingham and all that anymore, but who's gonna stop me from teaching it? Because that's the thing, because I understand the, CRT and everything that's going on, but who has governance over it? Who's going to monitor that? Because if on Monday morning, first day of school, if I want to go in a classroom and I want to bring in, whatever I want to bring in, who's going to stop me? So if I want to bring in whatever I want to bring in from African-American history, who's going to stop me?
That's an excellent question, Topaz. And what has happened, that's where this bill, that's where the implementation is going to show up. So I'm going to tell you what happened in Tennessee, because Tennessee already had a teacher that went in, taught it. She taught it, she did that. The only way that you're going to know, right, is if someone tells it. So if you have an administrator who is saying, no, y'all keep teaching, right? And that administrator is culturally responsive and continue to let that instruction go on. In my view, there will be no consequence, because who's telling it? We know what happens when in the closure of that school. But what happened when what happened in other communities is that when the schools went virtual, parents were hearing what was being taught. And the mere introduction, when the classroom extended into the home, came to just even learning about those things. When you have white families, or I'm gonna say families that suffer from white fragility, when they were in those spaces, they came against it, right? And now they are the ones with that have the power, and that's who you see at the board meetings. That's who you see holding up the signs, anti-CRT. That's who you see in the protests. Those who have access and who are seeing inside of the classroom, and they're filing lawsuits. So what happened in Tennessee is right now you have a teacher who did go ahead and teach it anyway. The administration, not the administration, the parents have filed suit. And so the consequences for that teacher is that she loses licensure in the state of Tennessee. The school now also has to pay a penalty for it, and that penalty is awarded to those particular families. So the idea is it's a bullying tactic in a sense, to make teachers more afraid to do it. And they're not thinking about implementation, Tobaz. These policymakers, as we know, there are people who testify to educators who said, this is awful policy, don't do this. But in the state of Texas, they did it anyway, because once again, we're having power plays of the governor here in the state of Texas that is totally trying to continue to marginalize Black and brown communities, because we are the majority, and we're coming to the point where our numbers are the majority. It's a majority minority state pretty much, and they don't want that. It is because they're afraid that that voting is going to go the other way. So once again, that's legislation and policy that's driving all of this, that is going to come into the classroom, but it ends up impacting our children, because what we know as practitioners is that when Black and brown children see themselves in the curriculum, this is just the research, is that when you're able to teach, even at the very fundamental levels of K2, is when you're able to attach to the child their background knowledge, they learn better. So if you can attach it to something they know, the content to something familiar to them, they then will learn to read, and then they will read to learn. So this idea is to whitewash it. Don't let them see themselves don't let them read books about these topics. And then we'll see underperformance continue, and that achievement gap increased by this type of policy. So that's anti-CRT from 10,000 feet all the way down to how it actually trickles down to what it means for our children.
I think
And
that
it's scary.
that we need to come back and talk about. That's an intense topic. Just
It is.
was hearing it. I had heard about it, but again, I was not familiar with its background. So just being able to hear this today was education to me, because I didn't know the in-depthness of it. But it's probably a discussion that we need to bring back to the table, especially as school is starting back. And as Martina mentioned, that laws are being implemented to change certain things that are going on. Wow. So I just think it's a topic that needs to come back again, Chantel. We need to do this again, that conversation, because I'm interested in hearing that.
And so,
I think people don't really know, like myself, I'm an educated person and was not familiar with all the intricacies of it, heard about it, but was not familiar with it. So just to hear that and how it impacts the educational system, once again, something that's impacting children, how they're developed. Development is so crucial. And so they're being impacted in another way. And I just think that that's a discussion, because again, I'm on the adult side of how I service people, and what happens as a child after 5 is so crucial. I know the development years are 1 through 5, but everything after 5 is also very crucial. And all the people that are involved in their lives gets them to me. I have to say that. All the things gets them sent to me. And it's unfortunate. It really is. And that's a whole nother story. But but I think Chantel has something she wants to talk about, but I just wanted to mention, I just want to thank you for imparting that
Mhm.
that information, because that is definitely something we need to bring back to the table.
Yes, we do. So in wrapping up, I just want to ask one last question, then I'm gonna let y'all talk about your independent ventures that y'all have, and then we'll end the meeting. My question is, moving forward, what would you tell parents and educators to help them navigate through this school year?
And this is like
And
a summary, just to kind of give them a last blast.
yeah,
We talked about a lot of stuff. We went really outside of the perimeters, but we want to be able to zoom in back and kind of end on the topic. What do you guys think that would help them? Maybe one or two words.
I would say to my parents to let's be open with one another, be patient with one another. I communicate with you, you communicate with me. We'll both listen to what the child saying they need, what they're having struggles with, and work together as a team. That I have their back, and I'm here to assist that child to have the best school year possible, and that will have positive impact into their future. So I would want the first thing to do is rest assure my parents, to give them the comfort that they're in good hands and that I need their support. So if you have any questions, ask it. And if I have any questions, I'm going to ask it to that parent, and then let's sit together, whether it's phone call, through text message, Zoom, and come up with a plan together for that student. And we'll get through the year together. I understand where you're coming from, understand where I'm coming from. What's going on at home, I will show compassion, understanding. What's going on in the classroom, I ask for the same respect, compassion, and understanding. And that we're gonna get through this together. That team makes the dream work. That's what I would push with my parents. Yeah.
okay.
I love everything that you said. Definitely communication. If you are a believer, prayer. Definitely prayer can shift a whole lot of things. Definitely know that we're partners in your education. I think the big key word is advocacy. Knowing that you are your child's biggest advocate. So don't be afraid to advocate, but also partner with us. We have, because of the pandemic, so many resources that we're not just here just to educate your child, but we're here to support you and your entire household.
Right.
Just to make sure that, because I think with this pandemic, we realize we have to make sure that everyone is well.
Right.
Administration, teachers, students, parents, everyone is well in the household. And so just to let them know that we're concerned about everything that concerns you, but definitely communication, keep the lines of communication open, and don't be afraid to show up. So.
Right.
I think I would say that I would remind parents that that I am you. I'm a mother. And so and most educators are parents, and there is a high level of us that are single parents. So we look like you. We came from in the same community, and like my sisters have said, partnership. You know, it's all about teamwork.
I'm just gonna end with that word relationship. Valerie she nailed it with that one. It's it's relationship. It's relationship that brought this platform together. This platform blessed me because I have been doing the work and haven't really taken the time to sit to really even figure out just how much people don't know.
Right.
And like I said, you all are amazing, educated women. So just for you all to say to me, like, Martina, wow, I didn't know that. It has given me reason to pause, right, and say, wait a minute, okay, how do I do this better? because to be in the trenches but not come out and say, okay, this is where we're winning the war and this is where we're not, is an area where I have to go back and look at the work that I do. And so it's in the relationship, right? For someone to be able to say to you and be honest with you.
Right.
So it's that level of transparency that I'm hoping that people will see in this broadcast is happening right now, where we have learned from one another on here. We have shared with one another. We've been introduced to new information. And because we know that God gives wisdom freely if
Yes.
we ask for it, but we oftentimes will dismiss the wise counsel because we don't seek the strength and the bond of that relationship. So if we can let God move through us and connect us so that we can keep doing this kind of discussion and conversation, he's going to ultimately win the victory. And we all know that. So I just am thankful to you ladies once again for bringing me on, for inviting me here. I'm thankful for the time that we spent together, because I'm walking away like just really reflecting and saying, okay, Martina, you gotta do something different to let people know all of this information. And I appreciate you ladies so much, because it's just, how do we do better what God has purposed us to do? So I just thank you for that. And I think the parents can see what we've done here. It's the relationship. It's all about the relationship.
All right. So would y'all like to talk about your independent ventures, Mirrors on the Wall, T, and Engineer?
I just want to say I have to step away. I have another engagement. It was a pleasure meeting you ladies.
Thank you.
So much for allowing me to sit in on this Zoom meeting. Did not wake up this morning knowing I was going to be doing this, but to God be the glory. All right. And
Sally, you were amazing. I want
Yes,
to
you were.
thank you.
thank you. You were
I
amazing.
appreciate that. Thank you. I'm nervous. I was nervous and still nervous. But
You did good, and we didn't even know it.
We can
Right.
invite you again to another platform that we have.
Yes.
thank you. I appreciate that. You all take care. You're beautiful. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Nice to meet you.
Same here.
I'm gonna let Chana go ahead and go.
Oh, okay. My nonprofit 501c3 is T, and the acronym is the T for Teaching and Encouraging Authenticity. We are to empower, educate, and encourage women. So our foundation is this: 7 dimensions of wellness. We talked about wellness, and right now wellness is so important. It's just the absence of sickness. And we teach and encourage about being mentally, emotional. We have counselors that sit on my board. We also have financial advisors, CPA who teaches financial wellness. So what that looks like. We also talk to you about your emotional, mental, and occupational wellness and physical wellness. And I take care of the spiritual wellness. So we talk about where you are spiritually. So that's what we do. We have quarantines ever since we've been on COVID. So we don't meet in person. We meet on a platform just like this, Zoom. And our next one, it will be September the 18th. So mark that on your calendar. We would love for you to come in, and you can find us at Teaching Love, Teaching LUV. And it's spelled that way is because you've got to show yourself love before you can ever love someone else. God bless, and thank you so much for having me on. It's been a joy.
Thank you for being on. Thank you.
What time is your platform? I'm sorry, what time is it going to be?
It's always at 11 o'clock. It's tea time. So come, ladies, bring your tea. Come with your tea. And let's sit down and let's have some frank conversations and get some, get some tips to help us be well and stay well.
Okay, thank you.
Outside of education, I do have a ministry. It's called Mirror on the Wall Ministries. It is a spiritually based ministry that empowers believers to live an everyday life victorious. And so through this ministry, I have birthed a broadcast and a podcast that encourages believers with everyday challenges and situations that we go through in our journey that sometimes we may not often talk about in church. And so definitely through Mirror on the Wall, we definitely address some of those areas. And so on next week, I'm going to launch a new series. It's called Chronicles of the Underdog. So we're going to look at just our own underdog stories, whatever area that you may have been an underdog in, but also look at some of those stories in the Word and what can we learn from those in the Word who have similar underdog stories. I am on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as Topaz Ingram Thornton, or you can find me on Instagram as Favorite Jewel. And also I have all of my podcasts on Anchor. And some, I think I'm on Spotify, Google Podcast, and then also I'm on YouTube. So please jump on my YouTube channel, share. We definitely want others to be empowered in their walk in Christ.
Awesome.
Wonderful. So I think everyone by now can know I'm totally into education advocacy. That is the work of Edgenia. It is to teach purpose. That is what it stands for. And it's teaching purpose in the context of education. Teaching parents to find their purpose by how they show up with their children, teaching educators how to show up in their purpose. And so over the next, what we're going to be launching in the next year, it's coming up this soon, but it's going to be over the course of the years. We're taking the parents and the community to school by building a community classroom, looking at movies, looking at books, doing book clubs, everything around this whole idea of education that is going to teach purpose to our next generation. So like I said, I came here as a guest, just totally in my purpose, which I think y'all could know, like it's my passion. I'll go all night talking about it because I really do believe that education is the key to us coming to who we need to be. And I think God has called me to the work of making sure that happens for the next generation. So thank you again for inviting me to the discussion.
I just want to ask Martina something. When you get ready to meet with those parents, if you would invite me, I would love to be a part of that. But also I want to just drop an idea on you. We used to, back in the day, we used to do parent walks in the classroom. So they would do like little mini observations. You can't take large groups, but maybe small groups of parents at a time, and just do some observations and just kind of see what's going on in the classroom. So, you know, I don't know about COVID, you know, standards, but definitely that has been something that Fort Worth ISD used to be open about, allowing parents to come in and kind of sit and observe. So that may be something that you want to tap into. And if you do, invite me so I can come tag along.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I also think too, do you all remember when there were classroom parents or did you all have classroom mothers? Where there was one mother who, or two mothers or fathers that was the classroom, and they kept the other parents informed.
Yeah.
Those relationships, those that sustained our village. That's that part of that critical race theory. They were systems that our community put in place that we didn't realize how important they were. But now we need to go back and reinstitute some of those systems. So I will definitely invite you. And like I said, you all have made me go back and reflect, because I just get into the work and I just do it. But I would really love to continue to have these conversations so that we can all come in partnership and start to really empower people to come forth and work. So thank you.
That's awesome.
Yes, so well, we'll be wrapping up. This is it. Any other questions?
No.
No? Okay.
I just want to say thank you again to Shauna, I've been calling you the wrong name ever. I apologize for that. I don't know who I heard say that, but it stuck in my head. So I apologize for that. But I thank you, Elder Shauna, for
Yeah.
coming. And I thank you, Elder Topaz, and my girl Martina. We New York buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah, so time I hear her talk, it's like, yes, that's my girl. So I just thank y'all. I appreciate you coming out and being transparent during
Yes.
critical time. Again, not having any children in the system, I'm oblivious. I was oblivious except for what I listened to on the news. I was
Mhm.
oblivious to how this was working and what was going on, or also except for the parents I have who have concerns.
Mhm.
I've heard it through them, but to hear it from your perspective has given me new light and definitely new insight on how to navigate myself living in a community that we have a lot of educators here, and just to how to support. And I just really appreciate that. And as a therapist, it also gives me a little bit more insight on how to deal with clientele
Mhm.
terms of language and some insight in terms of who to connect with. Because
Mhm.
again, I have basic knowledge on that, not invested knowledge, just basic knowledge. And so I just thank you so much for your gifts and your talents and your ability to be amazing women.
Yes.
You guys are amazing.
Phenomenal.
Just want to just say thank you for being a part of Chantel and I. And to those who are watching and those who will be watching, please don't forget that we too have Facebook pages for What's Troubling You, Discussions with
Yes.
Chantel. We have discussions each month, different that vary, that
Mhm.
talks about a plethora of topics.
Yes.
And we also talk about we also give opportunities for people to have a platform.
Mhm.
So just as we did today. So please look out for us. Please check out our YouTube channel, which is called Chantel and Charlene.
Yes.
And please like and subscribe. We have so much stuff coming up that we have planned for. So please and hear and enjoy and share and like, because the message is not just for you, it's for your family too. Okay, Chantel,
Thank you. Thank y'all. I love y'all. See y'all at
Love
church.
you back.
Bye-bye.
Yes. Love you back. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.